The old farmer and his wife stepped into the grand hotel lobby, their clothes simple and worn but clean, their eyes full of quiet dignity, carrying with them nothing but a small, battered suitcase and the weight of a lifetime's labor. Yet as they reached the counter, the colorful row of staff in their bright uniforms turned to look at them, smirks forming across their faces, and instead of offering greetings or help, they pointed fingers and laughed, mocking in unison, as if the sight of these humble elders in such a polished place was an entertainment rather than a moment of service. 2. The farmer held his wife's arm gently, his weathered hands strong despite the years, while she leaned on her walking stick, her scarf wrapped neatly around her silver hair, and they both stood in silence, waiting for someone to ask what they needed, but instead the manager stepped forward, his smile thin, his tone sharp, and he said with a cruel sort of cheer, "Pay for the cheap room and leave quickly. This hotel is not meant for people like you, we have standards to uphold, and you will never fit in here." 3. The old woman's eyes watered, not from weakness but from the sting of humiliation, for she had raised children, endured winters in a drafty house, worked the soil alongside her husband, and never once begged for anything, and yet here, before these polished strangers, her dignity was being stripped away, while her husband stood tall, his face hard as the land he had farmed, his silence carrying more weight than any protest could in that moment. 4. The staff behind the counter laughed louder, nudging one another, proud of their mockery, their bright uniforms shining under the chandelier light, their voices carrying across the lobby, while the farmer finally placed his suitcase on the marble counter, the sound echoing, drawing the attention of a few other guests nearby, who turned their heads curiously to see the scene unfolding, sensing that something important was about to be revealed. 5. Slowly, the farmer opened the old case, its hinges creaking like the doors of a barn, and inside was not the threadbare collection of clothes one might expect but a stack of documents and sealed envelopes, bound together neatly, and as he lifted the top papers, the light reflected off embossed crests, official seals, and signatures of ownership, the kind of papers that spoke of land, assets, and authority that no fancy suit could ever mock away. 6. The manager's smirk faltered, his finger lowering, and his eyes narrowed as he tried to read the pages upside down, catching words like shareholder and majority stake that made his throat go dry, while the staff beside him glanced at each other, their laughter fading, their fingers slowly retreating, realizing that the man they mocked was not just any farmer but someone whose roots ran deeper than their shallow arrogance could ever comprehend. 7. The old farmer finally spoke, his voice steady, deep like the earth he had tilled, and he said, "You think we are beneath this place, but while you polish marble counters, I built the soil that feeds your tables, and while you wear bright suits, I wear scars of labor that gave life to your comforts, and what you do not know is this hotel stands on land once owned by my family, land I leased for decades, land that still answers to my name on every deed." 8. Gasps rippled through the lobby as guests whispered, some pulling out their phones to take videos, for the humiliation had reversed itself in seconds, and the staff who mocked stood frozen, their pride shattered, while the farmer placed the documents down firmly and said, "So when you tell me to pay for the cheap room and leave, remember that the roof above your head and the floor beneath your feet are here because my family allowed it, and with one word I could decide whether you remain in this lobby at all." 9. The old woman reached for her husband's arm, not with anger but with gentle pride, her eyes shining as she saw the respect slowly returning to the faces around them, and though her heart ached from the insult, she stood taller, her dignity restored, while the manager stumbled over his words, bowing his head slightly, his polished confidence crumbling as he muttered apologies, knowing he had mocked the very man who had power greater than his own. 10. The farmer did not shout, nor boast further, but simply took his wife's hand and said, "We will take the finest room. Not because of your permission, but because dignity is ours by right." And as they walked past the counter, staff stepped aside in silence, the laughter gone, the mockery erased, replaced by the lesson that true worth is never measured by clothes or coins, but by the history, sacrifice, and quiet strength of those who have lived a life of honest labor and unshakable honor.